Hang in there, it is. That's Smylie Kaufman for 61. Wow.
I'm Smylie Kaufman, and this is The Smylie Show.
Welcome back to the final installation of our Smylie Show Major Championship, PGA Championship journals. This is a fuller recap. It's not our journal length you've heard from us all week long, and it's a sad farewell to a tournament we had a ton of fun at, and we have a first-time major champion. Xander Schauffele gets it done. To the surprise of us and the surprise of many, and does it in very convincing fashion with a crucial putt on the 72nd hole of his tournament to avoid a playoff with Bryson DeChambeau. Smylie, we're going to dig into that. We got some great stats here from Justin Ray, who is at Justin Ray Golf and wrote an awesome piece for The Athletic digging into this stuff. And also Randy Robles all week long was sending us little nuggets through Elias Sports Bureau. So excited to dig into that. But where I feel like we should start here is, I mean, what a week we had in Louisville. I just thought the atmosphere was awesome. We were hanging out in Club Magenta all week long. You had your final installation of Spilling the Tea today with Blair O'Neill. Just was it a little like wistful just leaving the property after all the fun we had this week at Valhalla and in Louisville?
Yeah, it was a great week. I think just being there with all of Justin Thomas's buddies who have all become I've been friends with them quite some time, but now Charlie's friends with all of them. So
my guys.
That was a lot of fun, and they swung by Club Magenta every day for the most part and listened to all the Q&A, Spilling the Tea conversations that we had today with Blair was the last one, and it was awesome just hanging out there, and especially on a really, really hot day. It was really crowded on Sunday, and complimentary drinks. So why wouldn't you come in? So it was a good time.
It was a good hang, Club Magenta. And then on the course, T-Mobile got a lot of play today because we had on the 13th hole with the 5G connected cameras, we had Alejandro Tosti driving the green. He did not see that coming at all. And I think Jordan tried his hand as well, maybe a couple others. But I saw Tosti's was obviously the most notable. He made eagle there. So that was a big early storyline in the tournament. And then also we saw Bryson on the T5G range watching Xander play that last hole.
How good was that placement there? I thought that was great. So, great week with T-Mobile. And I feel like they would have needed even more cameras, though, Charlie, if you were trying to drive 13 today.
Yes. The angles they had were fantastic, but I don't think anyone could have expected Alejandro to try to pull that move off. And I especially loved him looking through the rangefinder and just being tickled to realize his ball was on the green with a good-looking eagle putt. But that was early in the day, and what happened late in the day was the real excitement. And as mentioned, Xander wins his first major. And so here are just a few kind of stats to set the table for the discussion we're about to have. You know, he finished this week ranked second in strokes gained tee to green, 13th in strokes gained putting. It's the 7th PGA Championship in a row where the winner was ranked among the top two in either strokes gained tee to green or strokes gained putting. On tour this season, most top 5 finishes. Scotty has 7, Xander has 6. So that just shows you the level that Xander is playing at. He led or co-led each of the first of all 4 rounds this week. It was a wire-to-wire winner. Over the last 20 years, the only players to do that in all 4 rounds of their first career major victory were Jimmy Walker, 2016 at Baltusrol, Jordan at the 2015 Masters, Rory at the 2011 U.S. Open, and Trevor Immelman at the 2008 Masters. And here's a stat that I found really interesting to kind of set the table for just a Xander legacy discussion. Here's a list of the players with the most top 10s in majors prior to winning their first major championship. And I'm just going to, instead of reading the whole list, I'm going to pick a few notables because Xander had 12 previous top 10s in majors before winning this one. So Sergio, before winning the 2017 Masters, had 22 previous top 10s. Phil, before winning the Masters in 2004, 17. Ben Crenshaw, 16 before winning the 84 Masters. Fred Couples, 14 before winning the 92 Masters. Jim Furyk, 12 before winning the 03 U.S. Open. So let's just, and how about Ben Hogan, 12 before winning the 1946 PGA Championship. So I think that we have this we have this set of, of thoughts or memories of what we think Xander is. And now he gets it done, not without pressure from other players in the field on a Sunday to win his first major. Where does Xander go next?
Yeah, I mean, he had to win today. He had to win, especially, going into the back nine. He just couldn't let this one slip away. He's been playing too well this year. He's too good of a player to have not won a major at this point. But you just kind of named out a list that had some pretty dang good golfers that are Hall of Famers that took them a long time to win their first major too. So to your point, I mean, he's got an opportunity to continue to, build on this number one now. That's probably the hardest one, is to win your first. So I think even you mentioned Trevor Hulme a minute ago, and when we had him on the podcast before the CBS took over in San Diego, I asked him, I said, hey, what's one player that you think needs to take that next step this year? And the player that he named was Xander Schauffele. And at the time I was like, you're probably right. But I was like, I don't know though. I don't know if he's quite ready. And when I saw him at Bay Hill this year, Xander, he was working like so hard on his mechanics and his golf swing. I've never seen him just look like he's thinking so much over the golf ball. And it kind of got me thinking. I was like, man, I just don't know if what he's working on with Chris Como, like getting all this speed and having to be so into the mechanics, if this is going to work out. And as the weeks went on, about a month later, it just started getting like really good, Players Championship, and then all these other events where he finishes top 5, like you just mentioned, to where, what did he do? He went from having a golf swing where he took it fairly further, like he took it a little bit more outside than most guys, had a more laid off position at the top, still had a flex lead wrist, and was a really good ball striker. It was, he wasn't the longest player. I would say he was above average by, I wouldn't call him a short player. He was a player that could still get it out there. But what he's doing now, he's got it a little bit more through his hands on the way back. It's a little bit through his hands at the top and a little bit more across the line with the driver, with the same wrist mechanics. And what it's allowed him to do, it's given him the ability to turn a little bit better with his lower body on the way back to be able to pick up some speed. And where did we see that on this week? I mean, he hit 187 mile an hour ball speed on that 17 tee, and he probably should have hit 188 and he would have been in the fairway. But that is to say, how many times did you see where Xander would be one less club with an iron or just hitting these ridiculous ball speed numbers? So that to me is now an advantage and a strength in which he drove it so well on Friday, so well on Saturday. So he's driving it long and straight. And you know how I feel about his putter. And finally on a Sunday, he was able to get the putts to fall.
Yeah, I mean, took the words right out of my mouth there, because it's now you're looking at a full package. You're looking at a guy that's done all this work with Chris Como on the swing, that's added all this ball speed, but that is one of the steadiest, most even keel players on tour, both in disposition and the way he goes about his round, and has always been one of the most consistent putters on tour.
Right.
So you're looking at a guy that really the only thing we said, that we had to say against him was, the clutch gene debate of like, does he have the clutch gene? And so to see a putt like that go in on the 72nd hole, the boost that he must feel there, I'm now looking ahead. You and I talked this week about, man, Pinehurst kind of sets up nice for
Xander. It's a good course for him, yeah.
Does he start ripping off, a bunch of big wins? Because the form has been great all season long. I mean, it just feels like it could be a big year for him.
Well, we know he's going to be the lowest stroke relative to par at the Tour Championship at Eastlake. We can already chalk that up. Xander was the best at winning these random events, like winning the Tour Championship every single year with the different scoring system where, how it's set up now where it's all staggered. Xander would always win, it seemed like, every year at Eastlake, and then he won the gold medal. So he's like wins like all these like random things, and had one since 2022, had won a bunch before that. But I just feel like, yeah, like to your just feelings on Xander and where he goes from here. I think he's got an opportunity this year to maybe pull off another major championship and win another one. But I just think he's so consistent, and that lends so well to continue to win golf tournaments. When you are always in the top 25 like he's been, hasn't missed a cut in how long?
2 years plus now, I guess. Yeah.
So the guy is always going to be around. So I just think that Xander is in such a great position now. He's got a veteran caddy in Austin Kaiser now. They have such a good relationship. He's got all the tools. And when you just look at the landscape of professional golf, it just seems like a team of these two guys are just going to be in the hunt week in and week out in majors.
And speaking of Austin, how good was that conversation over the ball on 18 where he had a stance in the trap with the ball above his feet and just talking through what the number was to the lip of the trap and where they wanted to miss, where they did not want to miss, after watching just a few groups earlier. And this is not a dig at Victor Hovland or Shea Knight, because I think he had a mud ball and it was kind of a funky shot he was trying to hit there. But watching guys trying to hit a really difficult shot, we watched Bryson try to hit a ball below his feet out of the trap. A lot of difficult approach shots there where they needed to have a birdie at least. And just watching Austin and Xander go through that process and hit it exactly where they needed to give him a reasonable up and down. And then, of course, watching Johnson Wagner hilariously recreate that on Golf Channel later in the evening, which is just Johnson Wagner is just a true gift to the game of golf.
Yeah, he's been the MVP at night every night. But I kind of want to just start at a little bit about Xander's day and just kind of recap that a little bit, just from my lens of what I saw from Xander today. Birdieing the first hole, which was playing as one of the hardest of any of the holes today from a ranking perspective. So getting off to a hot start was really good to see for what potentially we felt like Xander could get off to the same type of day that Colin did, which just a lot of pars, not enough birdies. So to get off to a quick start was great. But then the par putt he made on 6 was huge. Just a huge momentum putt. And I think as we kind of get to this backside, I thought Trevor Immelman made a great point before Xander pulled a wood out in the bunker on 10 and ends up hitting it in no man's land. It was a great call by Trevor and the team there, because that's the type of mistake you cannot make on a Sunday, is bogeying a par 5. But what do you do right after that? He plays a very difficult par 3, makes birdie there. The 12th was, I feel like, probably the hardest hole on that back 9 throughout the week, and he goes and birdies that one. So huge bounce back ability at 11 and 12, made that big putt at 6. But the rest of the way through, to me, it seemed like he was playing really cautious because he was getting mud balls. I don't know if you felt the same way, but it just didn't seem like he could go at the flags like everybody else, because he was a little concerned about the mud on 13. 14 hits a great shot on a par 3, just misses the putt. And then I know he had some mud on 16, and then just really a bad break off the tee on 17 and 18, where, just really just took a lot of courage, determination on 17 and 18 to get those balls up and down, and he willed them in.
Yeah, I think he was playing at a very deliberate pace, which I'm not faulting him for. There was actually, I thought it was a great point made in the early coverage on SiriusXM, which was PGA Championship Radio this week, but a discussion that Fred Albers was having with Jason Sobel about just how it changes. You've done 3 days of threesomes, and that is a certain pace, and then you go to twosomes on the most important day of the tournament.
It's the best.
And the pace changes, but it's also
a rhythm.
You get in a rhythm, but at the same time, for a guy that's trying to play deliberately and judge a mud ball and try to figure out how you want to play it, it can. I think at one point they were maybe a hole and a half behind. They're dragging a little bit, but at the same time, like, if you get the shot right and you end up going on winning the major, it's well worth it. And yeah, to your point on 10, I thought that was a fantastic discussion between it's Trevor Immelman, Dottie Pepper, and then I think Frank Nobilo is even chiming in a little bit there, saying I think 10 was a wake up call for him, where really kind of it was like, okay, this is now, and he went out and made a couple birdies. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
and I think with Xander, and you may be able to chime in on this as well, but him coming out and being the aggressor right from the get go and birdieing 1, I think that shows a little bit of growth from last week watching what Rory McIlroy did. So what did Rory do? He went out and just, I'm going to be the aggressive one. I'm going to go make birdies. And I think when you see that in person in a final group, you're able to kind of show up with that type of attitude on Sunday and be like, you know what? I'm going to try to play the way Rory did. But also the golf course at Valhalla was much easier than Quail Hollow. But still, I think to me, that was, if we're going to talk about how players grow from one week to another and what did they learn, I think what Xander was able to do was go out on the front foot today.
You know, I think that is such an interesting dynamic to me. Maybe you can have some insight on this as a guy who's played in the final group at a major, but just the way pairings can affect your day, you know, going in either direction. And so I think I go all the way back to 2022 Open Championship. Rory and Victor are in the final grouping, and Cam Smith, I believe, was playing with Cam Young. I don't know if it was the second to last or third to last group, but Vic's having a stinker of a day. Rory can't buy a putt to save his life, and Rory's and there's no momentum in that group at all. Meanwhile,
right.
Cam Smith's taking it deep and goes on to win the tournament. Now, contrast that with last week at Quail Hollow, where Xander's playing with Rory. Rory's really grabbing the reins and going out there, and so. You know, and so in some ways you could either get pulled along by that. Now I got to make a bunch of birdies. Now I'm going to go deep and stay with the guy and have a chance, or do what Xander did where he just couldn't get the momentum going, couldn't score. Rory runs away with the tournament. So this week was interesting in that Colin could not get it going, had it in neutral all day long. And part of me was wondering if that was going to have a negative impact on Xander's game a little bit, of like, this guy's not scoring. Almost, again, let's go back to the Genesis earlier this year, where Xander and Patrick Cantlay are in that final group. Neither of them can get it going. You know, Hideki goes out and wins a golf tournament. So that dynamic is so interesting to me. And I thought today Xander did such a good job being like, I don't care what that guy's doing. I know what I need to go out and do to win this golf tournament on a very scoreable course, and went out and did it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's exactly right. And I mean, how many final pairings has Xander Schauffele been in this year? Now that I'm just sitting here thinking about it.
So there was, what was it? There was a good stat in the broadcast. Now I'm forgetting it, where there was, the most recent ones, we just noted the Genesis, but the most recent ones were, he was leading by a stroke heading into the final round at the Players, and leading by a stroke heading in the final round at Quail Hollow. Both those finished T2, I believe, or solo 2. And then this one, you know, tied with Colin, goes into the day, goes out and wins by a shot. So huge for Xander. And we'll come back to Xander's scoring as we discuss Valhalla and just some of the thoughts on the course from various people throughout the week. I want to move next to what I'm calling this the zombie one and done group, because this was, as we discussed last night at T-Mobile Club Magenta, where we were kind of repicking who we thought were going to win today. You like Bryson, I like Vic. And those guys went out and put some pressure on Xander and did it in a big way. So here's a stat on Bryson. At 20 under, Bryson became the first player to shoot -20 or lower in a major championship and not win. Like the previous two players to win the PGA Championship at Valhalla, Tiger Woods in 2000 and Rory McIlroy in 2014, Bryson led the field in driving distance. So, I mean, he did just about all that he could do this week. You know, I want to talk a little bit, you know, obviously about what he did well today and the way he kind of bounced back from some misses, because I thought that there were a couple of shaky moments on the back in terms of hitting approach shots, where something you noted earlier in the week about his distance control at the Masters kind of came into play a bit, but still found a way to score and get there and put himself in position to make a playoff. But where I want to start first is just, I love watching Bryson DeChambeau play golf. And I love watching Bryson play major champ. He's just so fun. Like, some people would call that energy, you know, corny or whatever, but the guy just loves it. He's fist pumping. He's getting the crowd going. The crowd's loving it. Today I was just tickled by Bryson the entire time. I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah, he's an entertainer. There's no doubt about it. Why do people love Bryson? It's that he kind of wears his emotions on his sleeve. And I think when he was on the way out on the PGA Tour, there was, I think a lot of people were frustrated with Bryson and the way he was handling with the media. He was declining to do media, I think, on the way out. Like, it was just, there was a level of maturity, it seemed like, for about a year or so that made him very unlikable to just a regular golf fan. But it seems like since kind of when he went to Live Golf Tour, I've just kind of noticed a level of maturity that's kind of happened in the last couple of years. He's definitely leaned in to the content side of the game with YouTube. He's got a bunch of new fans, I think, from all of the investment he's done from the content side. And then why else do people love him? Well, he hits it so freaking far. Like what some of the numbers he has.
Did you see on 18? Was it 7? No, was
17
it 17
196.
196.
Yeah, so it just
ridiculous.
Even some of the numbers like on 16, I think he had 214 and hit an 8 iron. It's obviously like his irons are they're definitely not like the same waft as like you and I's 8 iron, but still, I think it's the unrelatable part of how far Bryson can hit it. And as a fan being like, how is it even possible? And the way he approaches the game, just always just trying to beat a game that's never been beaten, just trying to find the perfect answer for everything. And as we called him when he kind of came out on the tour, the mad scientist, I think that's just the way he approaches the game, how he's leaned into the fan side. I feel the level of maturity and then just him wearing his heart on his sleeve, I think has made him more likable. And I can't believe that in a year that I found myself rooting for Bryson DeChambeau, and then I don't feel that same way about Jon Rahm. It doesn't make sense, but that's what's happening.
It's so interesting. And I want to ask you a little bit about like his sort of game strategy, because he is obviously a guy that thinks deeply about the golf swing and the technical aspect of it, and clearly is thinking about game strategy as he's entering these rounds and trying to shoot the best score. And you talked a little bit about this week of not knowing, after watching him at the Masters and some of the distance control issues he had with his approach shots. There were a couple moments that I thought were interesting where I think 15 he hit a good drive and maybe hit in a back bunker, had a great up and down there to save a 4. And, obviously on 17, he hits 196 ball speed, but he's got this feel wedge in and hits it short and doesn't really give himself a great birdie putt. And then on 16, he hits a poor drive. He snap hooks it left, is lucky to get a kick out of a tree. He's left with a much longer shot than what he would have had if he just hit it straight in the middle of the fairway. He's got to hit that 8 iron, like you mentioned. I think it was like a 214 cover and 220 to the pin. But that's the one he hits tight. And so I guess my question to you is just thinking about how to approach all that. It's that I know he can hit it that far. We know he can hit, dang near 200 ball speed, but does he need to be stepping on the gas all the time if, you're getting situations where, hey, it actually made sense to kind of hang back and hit a fuller iron, and that's what resulted in the birdie on 16 for him?
Well, if you recall, I mean, that he was very lucky to even have a chance. That we were walking left of 16, if you remember,
yes.
like how hilly it was over there.
Yes.
He was going to make at least a bogey potentially based off where that drive was going to go. So it's hard to criticize just like the decision making or whatever of where to lay up, because he was lucky to be in that position after his drive on 16. But that is like the only concern I have with Bryson's game, is just his ability to hit it pin high with all the speed that he has. And I'm disappointed that I talked myself out of picking him this week in one and done.
So
I had Bryson in the slot ready to press the button. And then I just kept on reading these stats on Rahm thinking, you know what? He's being slept on. He seems pissed off that everybody doesn't think he's good anymore. He's going to prove everybody wrong. And guess what he did? He tried to prove everybody wrong. But guess what happens when you try to do that in a member guess? You play bad.
Well, it's funny, even in this zombie one and done group, is that I had to laugh and looking at that, and I was like, well, we both picked live players both times, and we both picked Scandinavians both times. Just up front, we got the wrong live player and we got the wrong Scandinavian. I went with Ludwig, should have gone with Victor. You went with Rahm, should have gone with Bryson.
So mad. I'm so mad about it. I knew it was going to be a good Bryson week. And by the way, Xander, looking at the OWGR, he's made the jump to number 2.
Has he really?
Yeah. And
he deserves it.
The confusing thing, though, it has listed the multi-win bonus at 60% for the U.S. PGA Championship. So, but he hasn't won. Why is he getting a win bonus if he hasn't won since 2022?
That's a great question. They don't give him a bonus for. They wouldn't give him a Zurich bonus for whatever.
You know what they gave him the dang bonus for is winning the Tour Championship 72 hole scores.
Oh, well, there you have it. And to be frank, like, probably deserved in that context.
I mean, know, but it's not like winning a tournament, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess so. But I mean, but again, if you're trying to use a system to quantify the best players in the world, and you're going to determine yeah, I mean, listen, we could do a whole separate pod on the problems with the OWGR. I mean, we got all sorts of time for that. We
just wanted to let you know he made the jump to 2 and jumped to Rory. So, which coming off a win at Quail, I didn't think anybody was going to be jumping Rory. So, pretty crazy.
Well, and you to a fair point. You were hot on Bryson, and maybe should have picked him early in the week. We would not have seen Victor coming. Vic entered the week without a single top 15 on tour this year. He was 81st on the PGA Tour this season in strokes gained tee to green entering the week. He was 5th for the week of Valhalla. He went 35 holes bogey free on the weekend, and then bogeys 18 on Sunday. A tough little. He had that little right to lefter for birdie that snapped more than he thought it was, and then missed the comebacker. And it just
didn't make the putts.
But he was making them early.
Yeah,
and I think for me, I said numerous times, I was like, Vic, do whatever you can to get Joe Mayo back. Like, please go get him back. And he goes. They link back up. I think I heard Colt on the broadcast say today, he was talking to Vic and said, how long did it take for, the changes that Joe wanted to make to your swing? How long did it take for those to kind of click back into place? And he was like, a half hour, so it's just those two guys back together now. I could see Vic winning. I love Vic at the US Open. I love Vic at Memorial. Maybe over at Troon. Like, he looks like he is very back right now. And that's with just 1 week of work with Joe Mayo again. Like, I think we are right back to the Victor Hovland we thought we were going to see end of last year. We're entering this year. We're talking about a guy that could have a huge breakout year. I'm just happy to see him back.
Yeah. What I get a little worried about, just not to like burst like the bubble of like a PGA Tour guy, Xander Schauffele winning. But it seems like that's been the formula lately for when you win a major. It's like the sweepstakes to like, okay, I'm good to go now to the Live Golf Tour. So I hope that doesn't happen with Xander, but he would have a pretty cool team name though. Like they would have to be the X-Men, right?
They'd have to be or for anyone who watched, what was that Disney movie, Soul Skaters, Team X-Blades? That's a really deep cut. If you know that movie, Team X-Blades, Team Cup and Suds. I'm looking at your face. I don't think you watched that movie. Maybe it was no. Okay. All right. Sick reference, Charlie. So if and please like tweet at us or me or whoever, and I'll like give you the salute emoji. So, I mean, I think Vic is, I'm looking for Vic to play well. And some of these upcoming events. You said Memorial's a great one, where he won last year, kind of kickstarted the second half of this year where he ends up winning the Tour Championship. So great to see him play well this weekend. Now, the guy in the final pairing that we touched on a little bit earlier, it's like, I don't know how we leave this weekend with him, because obviously a frustrating Sunday, doesn't make a birdie until the last hole of the day, but he's going to head to Pinehurst next month as the only guy to finish in the top 5 in each of this year's, each of the first 2 majors of this year. And so, what do you leave this? Because I felt like he missed a lot of makeable birdie chances today, but his putter was so hot earlier in the week. And it's just like, you just can't at Valhalla. You cannot afford to do that on a championship Sunday.
Yeah. Well, he putted really well on Thursday, putted pretty well Friday, and Saturday, Sunday, the putter let him down. Both days he's hitting it better, which is good to see. I think one of the things I picked up on from the coverage is that he's definitely hitting that banana fade when he wants to hit the fairway, but he's definitely losing distance. So maybe that was a bit of a factor just from a proximity standpoint over the weekend, just having further clubs in. I mean, Xander, I'm sure, was blown it past him. So that's something I believe with Colin is can we get the putter and the ball striking back on the same page? Because his putter was carrying him over the last month and a half, and the ball striking was coming around. He's starting to feel like old Colin Morikawa again. So I didn't have any expectations for him today. I was going to be really surprised if he won. Not that he wasn't capable. You just know how I feel with what it takes to win a major championship. You can't just like come in with being like okay in a spot and really good in a spot, especially in a week in which it's a shootout. Like, you got to have everything firing, like we saw with Bryson, we saw with Victor, and we saw with Xander. So very pleased to see Colin Morikawa back, in contention again, because I think for a bit there we were kind of questioning, what's kind of going on with Colin.
Well, and I think it's interesting the context of all these discussions where you've talked a lot about like the change from Mark Blackburn and trying to figure out what's going to come next for him with the swing. And, we're juxtaposing that against two guys that now have it dialed with their instructors, with Chris Como and Xander, and now Joe Mayo back with Victor Hovland. And so that's going to be a piece for Colin to figure out. But yeah, I mean, I think he has something to build on going to the next major. It's just how's he going to put it all together for 4 rounds?
Yeah, and one other player too. I don't think we had this in the rundown, and I think Justin Thomas just like taking a look at his week and seeing like, all right, how close was he? He finished at 13 under. He was a top 10. He finished T8, and I was just looking to see, all right, how did he putt it and how did he drive it? And tee to green, he was number 1 this week. So that is really good to see that Justin's kind of getting comfortable with his golf swing and how he's hitting the golf ball. He definitely had some double crosses, but he was really good around the greens, hold out a bunker shot today and hit that incredible short-sided shot on 14 yesterday. But of the 78 players that made the cut, he was 75th in putting. So that to me is the story for JT, that it's good to see him hitting it well again, but he's got to start making these momentum putts, because this week, I mean, we watched him yesterday. It just was like, how are we not making these momentum putts to get ourselves up in contention?
Well, and not that you're offering him advice or anything, but like, what would you do if you were in that situation? Because to me, we talked about this a little bit when we were following him around. He's not hitting bad putts.
No,
like, they don't look bad. It's just there are a ton of lip outs. Like, how would you approach that if you were in JT's situation?
To me, it's all about getting speed correct. And I think you got to really determine, it's like, if I'm going to be an aim point guy, I'm going to be an aim point guy. Finding just whatever the formula it is for you to like read putts. And then just from there, just focus all on speed. Because if anything, to me, he misses putts because he hits putts too hard and too soft. I don't think he's a bad green reader. I just think he's just thinking too much about not feeling the line. And I think that's something that you got to either commit to one side or the other. I think he's kind of just stuck in between at times.
Well, I'll say this, and it goes back to what we said about just the Louisville crowd that was awesome all week long. The atmosphere was amazing. Man, it was so cool seeing him walk up 18. A day after watching the crowd go nuts for that chip in at 14, and all, like they wanted him to win so bad, and I think he genuinely appreciated that. And also, like, after a disappointment like that, to stay around and give Xander, a big hug and look genuinely thrilled for Xander. I thought that was really cool from JT, and it was. I think overall, it's a cool week for him. It has to be
100%, and you could see it just on the grounds, watching every single off every tee and off walking, off every fairway, off every green. He's just getting rounds of applause, and he's really, I feel like, engaged with the crowd every single moment that he could out there, just showing his appreciation. Just how grateful he is to be from Louisville, and how proud he is to be out there representing him. And you could feel that just watching. So that's my little JT spill. I know he's a buddy of mine, but still, I was proud of how he played this week, and I'm looking forward to maybe seeing him put all of this together, because wouldn't it be fun to see JT get a win here pretty soon?
Oh, 100%. And to transition a little bit here, like, it is wild that we are a half an hour into a final round recap in a major championship. We've not talked about Scotty once, and obviously a lot that happened with him early in the week, but just looking at his scores for the week, this was my own little, stat experiment I was doing is that we talked yesterday about, Amanda Balionis asked him about this, and just talking about how Friday he went out and played well in the immediate wake of everything that happened with the arrest and warming up, kind of played on adrenaline, and how Saturday was, obviously the big letdown. And not only was it, feeling exhausted in a lot of ways, but also he doesn't have Ted Scott on his bag on Saturday. And he sat with Amanda again after his round today, and she said, feeling a little better today, look like you're back to usual self. And he was saying, I'm still a little bit fatigued and just kind of feeling a little bit off. It obviously played better today, but made some mistakes that I normally wouldn't have. So just looking at his scores for the week. So if you plugged in Scotty's worst non-Saturday score of the week for his Saturday round, that it would have been a 67. He would have finished at 19 under and solo third. If you plugged in his best score of the week, 65, he finishes tied for first at 21 under, and he's going to a playoff with Xander Schauffele. I mean, how is that sitting with you, and how do you think it's sitting with others as we're looking at what could have been a Grand Slam year for Scotty?
It's just frustrating, especially with like the new reports that are coming out about some of the people that were actually there as witnesses as well. I believe it was some folks from the ESPN, their crew, Dave Fleming, Jeff Ogilvy. I think they had eyes on it as well. It's noted that these charges looks like they're going to get dropped. It's just a really sad situation because I know plenty of Louisville people that we talk to are just so frustrated by what happened. Valhalla members I know are just devastated that this happened, because it's just going to leave a lasting memory for so many people, because it's going to stick with Scotty for a long time. And he doesn't. How much does he want to see himself in a jumpsuit from something that he feels like he has done before, and it was a wrong place, wrong time type of situation.
Yeah. I mean, I think that we had our fun on the internet. I'm not like poo-pooing the fun that was had. There were a lot of, funny memes and TikToks and things like that we had a good laugh at. But, as you're kind of like getting away from the week, and you gotta, it's a little bit sobering to think, first of all, it needs to be mentioned again. And they were, and subsequently after we recapped everything that happened on Friday morning, and we're parsing through the tragedy of John Mills, who, they released the name of that volunteer was working the tournament. John Mills, obviously, terrible tragedy for his family, and our condolences go out to that Mills family. But, so his family's impacted, irretrievably. And the same thing with Scotty. It's like, this is a thing that he now has to deal with, whether or not the charges get dropped. There was an arraignment scheduled on Tuesday. It's just a thing that has to kind of live in his psyche, and he probably has to go decompress. And meanwhile, he's in the midst of a season that could have shaped up as one of the best of his career, and maybe rank among the best of all time. And it's just a tough to reckon with. And I think that, you said it well. I think it's tough for Valhalla. It's tough for Louisville. You'd imagine that the timeline for a return to Valhalla for a PGA Championship, by then this probably will be an afterthought, but still in the immediate sense of this season, it's just a tough thing. And, let's hope Scotty's able to kind of deal with all, and to your point about the dismissal of the charges, I think that was first reported by Kevin Van Valkenburg. No laying up, just those charges were going to be will likely be dropped from what he'd heard from his sourcing. But yeah, hopefully that goes away. Hopefully he doesn't have to go to that arraignment, and he can just kind of move past it and get his head right and keep playing Scotty Scheffler golf the rest of the way, because that was not a fun road bump. So before we there's another part of this discussion that I want to get to, but in attempting to research the discussion we were just having, I opened up a Twitter window, and I'm looking at a video right here that's making me love Bryson DeChambeau even more. Apparently, he tossed a golf ball to a kid on the way to the 10th tee, but got intercepted by an older man.
Oh, I saw that.
And Bryson yelled at the guy until he returned to the kid. Golly. I mean,
I saw that. That was great.
I'm not trying to detour us again, but Bryson he's just growing on me, man.
Yeah.
I just miss him. Anyway, I had to get that in the notes. Well done, Bryson. It's from the same file as like the home run guy that brings a glove and steals it from the kid, the foul ball guy. Not great. So let's move here in a bit of a different direction. We talked about, a lot of guys that played well. And there's a group of guys that maybe didn't have their best week in a lot of different ways. You touched on John Rahm a little bit. I think Rory kind of wishes maybe he played the week differently, and now has dropped in the OWGR thanks to Xander's jump. Yep. Brooks Koepka is another guy who had a rough Saturday and played well today on Sunday, but just not the result he wants in a major championship. And another guy, Wyndham Clark, missing the cut. A guy that we loved all year long, and it was right there. In terms of how we felt the best players on tour were playing, it was like Scotty and Wyndham and Xander. Those are the guys. Just reflections on that group of four of, how do you kind of say, hey, let's move past this. Let's learn some things and move on to the next one?
I would throw Cam Young and Cam Smith in there as well. Those were two other players as well that were disappointing, and just kind of looking at some of their stats as well. Cam Young ironed it terrible. So did Cam Smith. So that was something that and Cam Smith putted it terrible too. So that to me was something I liked Cam Smith this week, because I felt like he was going to iron and putt it well, and he did both bad. So, and I thought Cameron Young and Wyndham Clark, I thought this was a really good course fit for them. So really just not good stuff from them on a golf course that was a shootout. I mean, so many dudes were under par, and looking at the guys at the top, Xander Schauffele getting to 21 under, it's like the Rocket Mortgage broke out in a major championship here, looking at just looking at the scoreboard at a par 71. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of players that you can just kind of look at and say, it's like, how did they not keep up the pace? Because it seemed like, the guys at the top were not having an issue finding birdies out there, especially watching the coverage. It seemed fairly easy, but yeah, I mean, I guess if you're missing fairways out there, it's hard to make birdies. But yeah, I think the Jon Rahm thing's pretty fascinating, to be honest, because that's only the second major miscut that he's had in his career, and coming off a T45 at the Masters, misses the cut here. I guess this is like where I'm at right now with John, and just reading his comments and just hearing just how he delivers like his words now. He just seems like annoyed by everybody, thinking that since he went to LIV, he's just not the same player that he was. And I don't think he's quite comfortable with the decision. And I could be speaking out of turn here, but I just think he's trying to put a little bit too much pressure on himself of maybe distractions that he didn't have in the past. Just thinking about, are these fans going to like me? Like, I don't know if he's got a little bit of that in his personality of just wanting to be loved by everybody, but maybe that's something that's on his mind. I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out why Jon Rahm is missing cuts at major championships at a course like this, in which he should never miss the cut.
That's a really interesting one, because I think what we're trying to unpack there is not a golf thing. It's like a headspace thing. And
that's where I'm at right now.
And I think it's so interesting to look at. Let's look at some of the other big names that went to LIV. And I'm not saying that these players and their teams didn't have probably lengthy discussions on the front end of like, what's this going to look like and what's this going to feel like when you go. But you can never really know until you go what the ramifications are going to be, what the blowback's going to be. And I think that, guys like Brooks Koepka's just kind of content to, like, he wants to play majors and do well in majors.
He's good.
Doesn't care what people think about him. Like, he's just doing his thing. Dustin Johnson, probably similar. Like, I've won enough majors. Like, I'm good. Like, you heard him say it on Full Swing. Like, more money, less work. Yeah, great. I'm good with that. I'll go do my thing. I think, let's talk about guys like Bryson that we just touched on, where he felt a certain type of way leaving the tour, and maybe part of the process of a reckoning he had to do helped him mature and get to a point where he does feel more authentic in his own skin. You're seeing that now this year. And then even guys in between, where like Cam Smith, where he went and took the money, and then he shows up at the Masters the next year, and he's like, yeah, I kind of got lazy over the offseason. And at the end of 2023 last year, we saw him. I think he missed the cut at either the Australian PGA or the Australian Open, and there was like a moment where he was multiple strokes over par, super upset with himself, and so it's like it almost took like a year for him to reckon with the move and the type of golf he was playing and get it back on track in a way. And so I think that's it's probably a process that Jon Rahm is still going through. And it might take him a full year to process that if, kind of to your point, again, we're doing amateur psychoanalysis here, but if he's a guy like, shoot, I'm a people pleaser. Like, I don't like, seeing comments on our stuff. They're like, hey, you guys stink or this and that. It's like, that's tough to stomach. So imagine that times 1 million for a guy who's one of the biggest faces and biggest names in the game of golf. And, whether or not you see it or your team screens you, like, that's going to get to you in some way, shape, or form. And I think the biggest thing for him is he wants to be seen as one of the elite players in the world. And he's showing up and playing like this at majors. It's like you can you could say on the front end as much as you want to about, no, I'm still going to play good golf. I'm still in good shape. I'm still practicing. But if it's like, don't tell me, show me. And if what you're showing me is not good, it's hard for me to draw the conclusion, take you at your word that you're still able to play good golf until you show that to me again. Yeah,
I think you're dead on here. And I think just how he showed up this week, the Masters did not putt well, putted poorly on Thursday, hits it like crap on Friday. So you just have this golfer that I'm with you. I just think that with John, as we move to the U.S. Open, a golf course that should be a perfect fit for him. The U.S. Open, there's no excuses for him there. That'll be a huge test to see how he plays there. But you know what? I think, too, these guys have schedules and routines to get ready for major championships. And John Rahm, going to play at Bay Hill, the Players, and all these golf courses that test you for major championships. You have to wonder if there's a little bit of high level tournament rust that he just hasn't gotten from the Live Golf Tour, from the courses that they play. Mm-hmm. Maybe not quite as much the competition or even the format. Maybe that there's just an adjustment right now going on. It's like that. Hey, guess what Xander's been doing? Guess what? All these other top guys, Scotty Scheffler, been doing. They've been teeing off of one, and they've been playing tough golf courses. Now, I'm not saying all of our golf courses that they play on the PGA Tour are extremely difficult, but let's say a majority of these signature events that they're playing, they're freaking hard.
Well, that's what's maybe a little ironic about this week is if you're talking about a course in terms of degree of difficulty, as we're about to head in that discussion, that's probably the closest one to what they play on Live, right?
I know, but maybe there's just some tournament run. I don't know. I don't know if that's you see where I'm going there.
Well, you and I talked about this a couple times this week, where again, to compare Live players, Rahm versus Brooks, where Brooks seems content to just give me the 4 majors. That's what I get fired up for. That's what my team and I prepare for. I think for him, he was saying in the wake of not playing well at the Masters, his team was like, they punished me. The workouts got harder and they geared up. And, again, didn't play well here at the PGA. Brooks is going to be up for the U.S. Open and the Open Championship. But, but he's focused on the majors. For me, it's kind of what you're saying, that high level tournament stuff. It's like I get this sense that Rahm genuinely loved going to the Genesis or the Memorial or any of these sort of Bay Hill or the Players and playing in those tournaments against the best players in the world and getting tested by those courses. And so he has to be missing that in some way, shape, or form. And you can't replicate that. You can't go play a hard course and pretend you're playing in a tournament and looking at leaderboards. You just can't do it. I just
kind of laugh at some of his comments this week too, just asking about the PGA Tour. I don't want to get too far off into this because we got a really fun recap, but just said basically to sum up, he's like, I still support the PGA Tour. I'm like, no, you don't. You left. It's like you did the opposite of supporting the PGA Tour. So I get that he still considers himself a PGA Tour member, but no, you're not. Come on, dude. You took the money and you left. And you left for everybody else to try to go figure it out, and hopefully that it works out for him, that he gets to play on the PGA Tour next year. But who knows what's going to happen? I just kind of laughed at that and just been like, come on, dude. You can't say that right now.
That was a definite eyebrow raiser. And I don't know, again, we've talked, in a recent episode about the difference between Rory's public comments and Jordan's public comments and how each of those views those differently. And now it's like all these guys, I don't know if what he's trying to do there is extend an olive branch to guys on tour, because I don't think it landed that way. But I mean, it's a strange thing. And it's, again, we could do a full recap on that time, but it was definitely odd hearing him say that. I think now the place to go is, let's talk about this golf course, because not everybody loved the way it played. So let's start with some stats. All right. So Xander's score of 21 under par is the lowest in men's major history. His 25 birdies tie the most ever by a player in a PGA Championship. He's the first player in history to make 25 or more birdies in multiple majors in his career. He also did that at the 2019 Masters. So lowest winning scores at a major championship relative to par. Cam Smith, 20 under at the 22 Open Championship. DJ, and that one, I'm not asterisking St. Andrews, but we go there for the history. We don't go there for the test of golf as much anymore. And that's been said for a number of years. That's part of the whole rollback discussion. DJ, 20 under the 2020 Masters. That's one's asterisk because Augusta National's not playing the way that they want it to in November, that it does in April. You can't play it the same in terms of conditioning. Henrik Stenson 20 under the 2016 Open Championship at Royal Troon. That's interesting to see that on the board as we're about to go there in a couple months. And then Jason Day 20 under the 2015 PGA Championship at Whistling Straits for the week. And so that's just the winning score. Now, how about this? For the week, the field was a combined 214 strokes under par. That's not just the most under par for a PGA field of all time. It's 254 strokes lower in relation to par than the next venue on the list, Riv in 95, which was played 40
what in the
over.
world is that stat?
That, by the way, and I, if Justin Ray is listening to this, not they would be like, I've not been attributing all the stats in here. We said off the top that largely these are yours and Randy Robles' stats. That was straight from Justin Ray's right up on The Athletic, which, by the way, like, go subscribe and read to that because he hammers you with like all these amazing things that just contextualize what you just saw. But that one was like, I was like, this reads like it's made up.
I mean, that kind of tells the story.
Well,
right?
and here's one more because I think you were calling this you were like, are we watching the Rocket Mortgage or a major championship? So how about this? So final round scoring average for the field, 69.26. For perspective, that's a lower scoring average than we saw in the final rounds this year at the Mexico Open at Vedanta, which was 69.72, at the Amex, 69.28, and at the Puerto Rico Open, 70.13. So, I mean, and take this where you want to, Smylie, because for me, I don't feel like every single major needs to be a brutal test of scoring. In fact, I think we even heard criticisms in the past couple of years of the PGA that it was looking too much like a U.S. Open. And do we want 2 U.S. Opens on the calendar? And so this obviously is going in a very different direction. And, by the way, we saw historic first round scoring last year at the U.S. Open LACC that, stabilized over the course of the week. But it's not like we haven't seen little spurts of this before at major championships. But with Valhalla, I think that if you're trying to put a positive spin on it and look at the positive, it's like, that was great TV. Like, I loved watching that.
We knew that was going to happen, though. We knew we were going to have an epic leaderboard and a dramatic finish.
So, like, does every major need to be super hard, or are you okay with, every, the odd major being a score fest that you can tune into and be like, this is a leaderboard full of names of guys I know who are superstars, who all have compelling storylines, and they're going to take it deep on Sunday?
This reminded me of a PGA Championship that was in August, right? Like, this is kind of what we were accustomed to watching on TV in August for the PGA Championships, which were soft greens, hot temperatures. We saw that on Sunday, but to me, it's like, gosh, I kind of go more towards wanting it to test the players more, at least, it's a little bit more less than whatever the total number under par is, because I feel like what the major championships do such a good job of is identifying who really is playing the best that week. And when I was kind of looking at the board, I just felt like there were too many random guys that were in there that were having really hot putting weeks that aren't necessarily one of the best ball strikers out on tour. So to me, that I'm like, gosh, I'd rather see the guys that can really stripe and really have to land it in tighter, smaller areas. And this golf course, let's just call it what it is. It's long. That's what they try to do. We're going to try to make it really long for these players. But the problem is when you have soft fairways that are this new great zoysia, And the only way these guys got tested coming into the greens is whether they had a mud ball or not, because the greens are fairly big. They played soft, and there's just not a ton of trouble around the greens. It's not like you're playing a Memorial where these greens are, shaped so shallow to where you get missing the green. You can't get up and down out of the rough, or short-sided bunker shots, but that's just not the case out there. I felt like every bunker I saw guys get into, they could get it close, or if they were in the rough, they were able to chip it close. And that's just not what we're used to seeing for major championships. When you miss short-sided, you pay the price. And I just felt like it just wasn't penal enough.
Yeah, I think that's a fair critique, and it mirrors, a lot of what was said online of just there should have been more. I guess that was the other thing in watching, on Sunday, is there were numerous times where a shot was hit by either Xander or one of the chasing pack of players. And in my mind, I'm thinking, man, it's going to be really tough to save a par here. And then in any other major championship scenario, they probably wouldn't, and they'd come back to the rest of the pack, or the pack would fall off. And now we have some excitement, we have some kind of movement. And instead, it was like, oh nope, they got up and down for par, and they kind of stayed where they're at. Yeah. And it just puts the pressure again on the chasers.
Everybody got up and down. Yeah, it just felt like everybody was getting up and down. And I guess I'll ask you this: and do you? From your perspective, do you like watching these big momentum, like big roars? I mean, because there was some energy in this crowd. You could feel it through the TV. Like, do you like just all of these guys hitting it close and making these birdie putts? Because Augusta didn't have the roars this year, but they dang sure had them at Valhalla.
Well, and I think it depends on the perspective you're talking about, because this is a funny, to peel back the curtain a little bit. I was having this discussion with someone who works with SiriusXM, their Masters radio that week. And I was like, man, I am loving watching the carnage on Friday. The wind's going crazy. The greens are crispy. This is at the Masters now. And he's like, are you kidding me, dude? That's terrible. No excitement, no roars. It doesn't, the energy doesn't translate to, an audio product or a visual product. And so, and honestly, I tend to agree with them. Like, I think that, it just depends on the viewpoint you're looking at it from. And I think that there are definitely a lot of golf purists that are tuning in for majors to see a stern test and see these guys have to face the toughest conditions and find a way to succeed. And that was not the case this week. And so I guess where I net out on that is kind of where I started, honestly, is just that I'm okay with it every once in a while. I'm just not okay with it all the time. And I think if I were to, make an ask of a governing body, because I'm looking at next year's calendar and I'm watching what Rory just did lighting up Quail Hollow, and that's what the venue hosting the PGA Championship next year, and what the course comparison that is made for Quail Hollow is Valhalla. And I'm thinking, oh boy, if we do this 2 years in a row, there are going to be some unhappy campers. And that to me is if there was a sort of variance in the flow, I actually kind of like that as an identity for this championship. It's like, we know what the Masters is, right? We know what the U.S. Open is. It's going to be, demanding, difficult, narrow fairways. It's going to be a test, no matter where it is. We know what the Open Championship is. It's it's links golf. It's, takes us back to just the origins of the game and, ton of history there. The PGA, I feel like, has had this sort of transition in identity. It was a fall event. Now it's it's sort of a spring leading into summer event, and it was really hard for a couple years, and now it's really easy. And it's like, if there was sort of a better flow between venues. So we got a hard one year, and then we got an easy one. And to be fair, that's kind of, we went Oak Hill to Valhalla, but now we're going to go to Quail Hollow. And I don't know how some of the other PGA venues coming up, how they're going to set up. Congressional's coming a few years down the road. And we saw Rory rip that up for one of his major wins, early on, and again, it was a rain soaked venue at that point in time in DC. But, it's just, that's the tough part for me, is if you're getting too much of that, then I understand why people complain. But being on site this week in Louisville with those crowds and the energy, I was I very much enjoyed that, even if I understand why people are critiquing it from a golf purist perspective and from a major championship test perspective. I totally get that. It's just like, hey, like sometimes I want to have meat and potatoes. Sometimes I want to have a little soft serve ice cream. This week was a lot of soft serve ice cream, and now I need a detox.
Yeah. And I think just all it is the greens were just soft. You know, if they were Bermuda greens and they were firm, I'm not sure exactly how firm those bent greens ever get, if they do ever get firm. But to me, it's like, I just feel like you got to have major championships on either slopey greens, which those aren't, or firm greens that are flatter, which these greens are more on the flatter side besides the 18th. So I don't know. I think a good barometer for me for any event, it's like, okay, if the tournament ended up at 12 under, that means it was a really good test. Like if the guy that won shoots 12 under, that's a very good number. That means the golf course really tested all the players in the field. 12 under this week, there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guys that shot it, and you were T12. So yeah. I just
well, and I think the interesting thing there too is like looking at some of the guys we listed as being disappointing. You know, for some of them, like especially Cam Smith, who made the cut and didn't play well today. It's in other major championships. If you have a couple good rounds, but you have one off day, but you find a way to kind of scrape a score that's like close to even par, you're still in it, right? And you can still find a way. Whereas like, just this forget about it this week. Like you're cooked at that point. So it's a little weird. It's like, do you kind of, if you're in those players' camps, you kind of throw that one out the window. You're like, I mean, I don't know. Like if I don't have my best stuff, everyone's going to run away from me, That's where I like kind of land on Scotty, which is why I didn't like him coming into the week. I just felt like he wasn't going to ever win a shootout. And we can't judge him based off what happened, but still, I feel like if there was a major that he wasn't going to win this year, it was going to be the one that he had to shoot 21 under to win. Yeah. Yeah. It's absolutely fair. And I think, we pretty much had it right. It ended up where we thought it was going to end up with a 21 under winner, the lowest winning score ever in the major championship. So, Smylie, I feel like it's about time to wrap up on this recap. I feel like we gotta thank a lot of people for this week. Got to thank the Stidens for hosting us, and shout out to the goodest dog, little Maggie. We enjoyed having her participate in one of our episodes this week on YouTube. Go check out the Westie. Love Maggie. And we got to thank the good people at T-Mobile for hosting us in Club Magenta. That was a ton of fun. And we got to thank JT's boys for just taking us around Louisville. Yep. We went to the horse races. On Saturday night. I was about to get into that. Let's go. Big winner over here on Saturday night. I think I got to tell that story, right? Like, so I have like 5 or 6 slips because I can't figure out this machine on trying to figure out all these bets. I'm used to, if I'm going to bet on a football game or something, -7 on the line. Like I understand how to read a sheet when it comes to any other sport other than horses. So I'm looking at this sheet and all I see are all these random things that you can do. And I got all these guys, helping me try to pick these numbers. I have no idea what I'm betting on, but I had 6 slips and you were deep into it. You spent a hot 15 minutes at that terminal. So I got all these slips and we go out there and we're all watching, we're all yelling. I don't even know what I'm yelling for. I don't even know what I'm cheering for. I don't know what horses I have. And after the race, I'm like celebrating like I won. And I have all my sheets and I have one of their friends come over there like to let me know how I did. And he looks at like one of them and he's like, "Oh my God, you hit that." And then I showed him another. He's like, "Oh my God, you hit that too." and I'm like, "Oh my God, we're buying Churchill Downs. We just hit the big bucks. Like this is huge." And I get over there. He's like, "Actually, this one didn't hit, but this one did. And that's huge." And I hand him my sheet. And I think I probably had like somewhere around like $50 or so on this, like overall, like it's now, no, it wasn't like this massive bet, but I thought I hit like these big odds or something. Yes. And I hand it to the lady and it pops up and I think you were right there next to me. And I was thinking, I was like, is that decimal place in the right place? Because there's no way I just won $43.85. Like surely like there shouldn't be a decimal place. And I just won,
$4,385 or even just somewhere around $300. Like that was the winner I thought I had. And no, sir, you won $43 and yeah, good luck. Like,
I thought I accompanied you to the whatever the stall is where you give them your tickets. I don't know. As you can obviously tell, I know nothing about horse racing or the betting, the terminology, and as further evidence of that, I did not win any of my bets the night. I just like lit $80 on fire. Thankfully, it was just $80. But I went up there with you thinking like, all right, we're seeing no less than 4 digits, and it might be more. And we saw 4 digits. Just so happened there was a decimal between 2 of them on either side. So but you had a winning ticket, so you got to experience the vibes at Churchill Downs. That place rocks, dude. The little paddock thing on the outside.
Sick. I am 100% going to go to the Derby, and I'm really pumped that I kind of know the lay of the land and how the ticketing and all the betting works there, because if I would have showed up day one at the Derby and tried to learn all that on the fly, at least I show up knowing I have no idea what I'm doing versus like showing up thinking I'm about to wreck this place. So I have just a basic, like I need to probably do some research, know what I'm doing, and kind of know what my plan is. So, but yeah, great week in Louisville. Really fun. Man, I don't even know where I'm heading next, but I'm excited about the rest of the U.S. Open coming up. I know that.
Yeah, that's going to be a good one. You got some stuff going on this week. I'm heading to Sandhills this weekend. Very excited about that. And get a little golfing in the Nebraska Sand Hills. I don't know what the region's called, but just
get them
somewhere in Nebraska. Looking forward to that. We'll
Stream
recap
song
that next
for me.
week. Stream song for you. So we're playing getting a little golfing this week. Post our big spring round that was in Louisville, as we
Great
mentioned.
time.
Also, shout out to Ben and Grant for hosting. But that is all for this episode and for our recap of the PGA Championship. But we're excited for what we have coming up next, because it is Colonial Week, and we have on Gil Hanse, who did the restoration of that project, take it back to its, I believe it was 1940 or 1941 U.S. Open that was hosted there, took it back to those roots. Super cool visuals. He sent over an entire deck that was put together to show what they were doing at the restoration, the changes over time. So that episode is going to drop on Wednesday, and you should, honestly, if you're a course architecture nerd, go watch that on YouTube, because the visuals will really bring it to life. But look forward to that episode to get you prepped for Colonial this upcoming weekend, and might even have another special guest joining us in that episode who has extensive PGA Tour experience, who also has a vested interest in the restoration at Colonial. So look forward to that, and then we'll have a full Colonial recap coming after the weekend. So we appreciate all of you watching and listening this entire week as we recapped everything from Valhalla and Louisville. And we have final thoughts with Smylie.
And just a reminder that our one and done picks will be in the next episode with Gil Hanse's interview. And I'm just going to go and tell you who the player is. It's going to be Ryan Palmer. So we're going to have him join us, and one and done picks for Colonial. So looking forward to watching what that looks like on TV next week.
Love that. Big Colonial bundle coming soon. Thanks for watching and listening, and we will see you back here soon.
I listen to this podcast. It's really cool. And
all of our Louisville fans and subscribers, but make sure you like and subscribe.
It's cool to see what you guys are doing. I know golf fans appreciate it, but we do too, so please keep it up.
For all the good people at YouTube, like and subscribe.
You guys have some good takes, so I'm happy to come on and shoot the